where will Texas be better? And what I mean by that is, for example, Quinn Ewers had 31 touchdowns. Do we think we have more touchdown passes this year or less touchdown passes? We might as well start out with that. So Quinn Ewers had 31 touchdowns. Gerald, does Arch Manning have more than that?
I This is not a judgment of quality on Arch Manning. 31 is a big freaking number. Quinn Ewers in the two previous years, I think, had 25 and 22 or 21 and 20. I don't remember what the numbers were, but like 31 feels like a really high, lofty expectation, especially in a year where I think Texas may be a little more run heavy than they have been in the past. So I will say less or fewer, not because of a Arch Manning deficiency, but I just think as a function of like 31 feels like a big outlier for this offense, especially with how I envision them running it this year.
No, I agree. I think he has less touchdown passes, but he has more total touchdowns. I think he ends up with probably 25, 26 touchdown passes and then 7 to 9 rushing touchdowns. So I do think we're going to get more production and touchdowns out of Arch Manning than we did Quinn Ewers. And it basically kind of even out too, because Quinn missed 2 regular season games basically, and he got those back with the playoffs. So this is kind of like Quinn throwing, he legitimately would have thrown, 31, 32 touchdowns in the regular season if he didn't get hurt. So that is a big number. So I think Arch Manning will beat that with overall touchdowns, but I agree. It's a big number. I don't think he beats it with just that.
And those 7 or 8 rushing touchdowns, I don't anticipate them being called runs. I just want to put that out there. Him scrambling, him doing something with their feet. Sark is not ever going to be a quarterback run offensive coach. He's just not. It's not who he is.
No, I agree. I think it's going to be like probably 2 to 3 him, it's 3rd, 4th down, QB sneak. We're right on the 1. And then the rest are going to be Arch Manning, scrambling, especially we saw in what was that? The UTSA game. In a competition like that, he could run a 70-yard touchdown if he needs to, because he's athletic enough to do that. So I think he'll have probably 2 to 3 more of those. So that's where I think he gets those touchdowns at.
I'm with you.
So Matthew Golden had 9 touchdowns receiving. Do you think we end up with a wide receiver or tight end with more touchdowns receiving than that?
I think I'm going to go less. I feel like this is going to be a very spread out production year from the pass catchers. I think you've got a tight end that's going to be, getting broken in. I think you're going to have multiple wide receivers. And again, this is not a judge of the level of talent, right? But one Matthew Golden, 1st round wide receiver, right? And I think Texas has fewer proven commodities there. And so I think Arch Manning is probably going to be spreading the ball around a bit more. I think he's going to be trying to feel those things out, especially early in the season. Again, 10 is a lot of touchdowns. Texas has not either hit 1,000 yards receiving or 10 touchdowns in the same year in a very long time, because it is a big stinking number. So I think less by simple virtue of having to spread the ball around to multiple targets more.
No, I'm going to go over. I think someone is going to have 10 touchdowns. I think that's either going to be Jack Endries at the tight end position. I could see him having a lot of touchdowns. Or this one's going to be risky because of health so far, but I think Ryan Wingo could have 10 touchdowns. I think he's that type of physical athlete, especially being able to high point the ball in the red zone, I think could happen. And we already saw Arch Manning had a pretty good connection with him last year. So I think either Ryan Wingo or Jack Endries gets the 10 touchdowns receiving.
I could see Endries, especially young quarterback, loving a tight end. Sark likes a tight end that can catch. Put him in a corner, put him in a flag route in the red zone. Hopefully, take advantage of his ability to high point the ball. So I think there's if it's going to be one, I think Endries is a good bet there.
Yeah, and I don't know the last time Texas had a tight end have 10 touchdowns. I don't think Jatavian Sanders had that a couple years ago. And then my guess, I don't even know if we've ever had that, because Jermichael Finley might have it at some point, or David Thomas. I don't know, but it's been a very long time. And it'd be interesting to just know who that was.
I'd have to look it up, but I think Jermichael Finley is probably the right answer.
No, I agree. I think that'd be the most likely candidate. Next up, pretty close touchdowns-wise with Golden out of the backfield. Jaden Blue had 8 touchdowns rushing last year, which surprised me that he was the leader with 8. That was kind of all over the board. So do you think someone beats that this year?
I do. I think they're going to have more touchdowns. I think CJ Baxter being healthy is going to be have a long way to go. But I also think CJ Baxter is going to be more available in short yardage for Texas offensively. So I think that combination of him being able to, I think, have a bit more physicality and break through some tackles at the line and pass the line, kind of the second level tackles. If you put him one on one, it gets the defensive back. I'm taking CJ Baxter 10 times out of 10. So if he can get past that second level, I'm just going to say he's gone. So I think more is probably the right number there.
No, I agree. I honestly expect this to be a decent amount more. I think probably 11 to 12 for someone on this team. I could see CJ Baxter having that. I could see Jarrett Gibson if they just want to use him as like a battering ram at the goal line. Same with Christian Clark. I could see any of those guys. I don't really see Trey Wisner getting there because we saw him kind of struggle in those situations last year. So I don't think he gets there. But I do think someone is going to have at least 9 touchdowns rushing next year.
Now that you've doubted Trey Wisner, he's going to rush for 15 touchdowns because
I
that's the kind of cat he is, right? You doubted him, and now he's going to rush for 1,000. He's going to rush for 1,010.
I would be cool with that. I'm rooting for him, obviously, for multiple reasons. I like him, and then he's on my team, so I'm always going to be rooting for that. But we're both over there. Now, this one I think is pretty interesting as well. Running back position, rush yards. This is Trey Wisner, 1,064 rushing yards. Do you think we beat that, Gerald?
I do actually. I think Texas is going to get past it. I mean, Sark has not had a year without 1,000-yard rusher, so I think 1,000 you can pencil in right as pretty guaranteed. Sark as a head coach, and put that caveat on there, has not had a season without 1,000-yard rusher in his entire head coaching tenure. And so I think, again, do I think CJ Baxter is able to break 1 or 2 more tackles than Trey Wisner was? Yes, right. So it's a pretty easy answer to me. And again, that's not a shot at Trey Wisner. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Trey Wisner should never buy another drink for himself in the city of Austin, right? Everybody should be stumbling all over themselves to buy that kid his next round whenever he's old enough to drink, right? Because of what he did for Texas, right? He came in, was expected to be a 3-star kid, kind of a roster filler, a special teams guy, and he came in and carried the water for Texas all year. But again, I don't think anybody's going to be shocked to hear me say that CJ Baxter is a better athlete and a better running back than Trey Wisner. And so if Sark's standard is 1,000 yards rushing, Wisner got just over that. And do I think CJ Baxter is significantly better than Trey Wisner? I do.
No, I agree. I think we go over. I mean, we barely got over the 1,000 yards this year. He almost broke that streak with Steve Sarkisian. I do think we beat that this year, but I could see a scenario in which, we have 4 or 5 guys with like 400 or 500 yards each. So that would be the only scenario where we don't go over 1,000 yards. Like if it's 2 guys splitting the carries, then someone's going over 1,000 yards. I'm pretty certain of that because again, I think the running game is going to be better. And I think also we'll be able to hit the deep ball more, which will soften up the defense. And that will also, again, help the running game. So I agree. Over. Now, next up, receiving 987 yards. Again, Matthew Golden, the first round pick. Do you think someone goes over the 987 yards receiving?
I do not. For the same reason I thought that nobody's going to beat his 9 touchdowns this year, because I think they're going to spread the ball around more. I think there's going to be more players touching the ball in the pass game. This is a very an offense that's easy and for an offense for which it is easy to spread the ball around, a lot of multiple looks, a lot of things happening. And so I think for especially a young quarterback like Arch Manning, there is the situation where he kind of locks in on one guy and that becomes his guy early. That's a tendency young quarterbacks do tend to happen. They find their security blanket and stick with it. But ultimately, I think Arch has been in the program long enough and he's confident enough that won't be the case. So I think that they're going to spread the ball around quite a bit. There's just a lot of guys to choose from. And so I think nobody's going to get there.
I don't either. I think that what I said with Ryan Wingo is more of, like I said, a red zone threat type thing, but I don't think he goes for 1,000 yards receiving. I think we're going to have 4 to 5 guys with 450 to 550 to 600 type yards. That's what I think we're going to have in this room. So that's where I am with that. Matt, we're not going to have anyone, I don't even think, get really close to that number. I think the most I could see someone having is like 800 yards in this receiving room. So we'll see. I mean, Ryan Wingo, I guess if he had just like an insane breakout season with a bunch of yak, especially after the catch, then he could get there, but I just don't see that happening. I see him more of as a red zone threat right now.
Yeah, and again, I think just based on the amount of unproven that's on this group, I don't feel confident saying anybody's going to be an alpha dog in that group.
I agree. Next up, Makuba and Barron had 5 interceptions. Do you think anyone reaches that number or goes over that number this year?
I don't. I think that is special, right? That 10 interceptions between two players is very special. So even one player having 5 is a really special number. Part of the reason why Jade Barron won the Thorpe was because he had so many interceptions. So do I think that there are people in this secondary that are talented enough to do it? Absolutely, right? Talking about Derek Williams, Xavier Filsamy, Malik Muhammad, all of these cats are really, really good football players. I just don't think that they're that again. Texas had so many stinking interceptions last year. That is a ton. And so I don't think that's a replicatable feat from anybody.
No, I don't think so either. I think Michael Taft or Derek Williams could end up with like 3 or 4, but I don't think they're going to go 5 plus. I expect really good years from both those guys, especially if Derek Williams is healthy. But yeah, 5 is a big number, and have 2 guys being able to do that is pretty great. And Andrew Makuba was a great player at sitting back, reading the eyes of the quarterback, and reading and reacting and making a play on the football. And if he didn't make a play on the football, then he blew up the guy that caught the football. Jade Barron was, again, really good of, sitting back and then going to make a play. I think the 2 best examples of that are when we played Arkansas and he was able to go and make that interception where the ball kind of got tipped up in the air and he made the interception out of the wide receiver's hands. And I think it was Florida, or it might've been an earlier game, UTSA, where he basically left his zone and just ran straight down the field and made the interception. That was a really good play from him. So yeah, I just don't see 5 interceptions from anyone on this team.
Such a big number. And you mentioned, there's something to be said about experience, right? And those 2 guys were 2 of the most experienced players in the secondary. So they had seen it all before, and they were able to diagnose and do things like, I'm going to bail on my zone because I see something down the field. So I don't think there's anybody with that level of experience outside of Mookie Taft. There's nobody that has that level of experience and tenure that I'd even trust to do those things.
Next up, and we're down to our final 2, Anthony Hill had 17 tackles for loss. Do you think anyone beats that number?
This is my big hot take. I think somebody does. I think, honestly, it might be Anthony Hill. It might be Colin Simmons. I think either of them has an opportunity, and it probably goes with my next answer. I think, the edges this year for Texas are going to be a pick your poison for teams. Texas has so many stinking players, right? And at some point they're going to double the guy opposite Colin Simmons and he's going to make him pay. And then they're going to have to, play each of them one-on-one and he's going to make them pay, right? There's no situation in which Colin Simmons does not have the tools to make somebody pay. And so, you didn't ask me to put a player on it, but I think honestly, Colin Simmons is probably the likeliest one to do it. Or maybe Anthony Hill outdoes himself. Again, he's that good.
No, I actually think we're going to get 20 plus from someone this year. I think that's a really good number that someone can reach, whether that's Anthony Hill, whether it's Colin Simmons. I mean, honestly, a guy like Trey Moore could really pop off because he had a really good end of the season. Brad Sments, I also think, is going to have a decent amount of tackles for loss in this defense. He'll be able to eat a lot more than he did in the Arkansas defense. And again, he came on down the stretch for Arkansas, which was a much less talented defense than we have here at Texas. So someone's going to get, in my opinion, more than 17, and I think they're going to end up with 20 plus.
I think that's completely fair. I think that is, again, I think we talk about it all the time on this channel. Like, when it's Colin Simmons and Trey Moore on either side, it's a pick your poison, right? And so, if you have to pick your poison a couple times and, if Texas plays 13, 14, 15 games, that only takes, every other game getting 2 or 3 to really set that number pretty high.
Last one, Colin Simmons had 9 sacks as a freshman. That did lead the team. Do you expect that to be beaten?
Yes, right. Those 2 go hand in hand for me. Yeah. I think Colin Simmons is going to put up double-digit sacks this year. I think he's got 10 in him. I think he's going to be able to do it really, really well. He is as a sophomore, one of the most effective edge rushers in the country, period, end of sentence. And so he's got an ability to do that. I think the wrinkle in this is if teams end up like saying, hey, we're just going to let the other guy beat us and double Colin Simmons every game. But then that opens up Trey Moore to set the record or whoever might be on the opposite side. So there's Ethan Berger, whoever it might be, right? One of those guys. I think if teams choose to like focus their offensive game plan on Colin Simmons, the other guys are going to feast.
I agree. I actually have a hot take here. I think 2 guys reach 10 plus sacks this year. I think Anthony Hill is going to get to 10, and I think Colin Simmons is going to get to 10. And the reason I think that is I think the next level, guys, Anthony Hill's an edge player. I really believe that. I've already Todd McShay came out on his thing and said, when I watch him, I just see edge. And I've always thought, he reminds me, I know it's a high praise and high bar, but he reminds me a lot of Micah Parsons. And what did
I can see
Micah
it.
Parsons do at Penn State? He played inside, and then when they really needed him to, they put him outside. And we saw what he's done with the Cowboys off the edge. I think Anthony Hill can do that. Like he has more of that body type than an inside linebacker.
I mean, he has more of that body type, and frankly, like I think with his deficiencies or struggle, like there's one area to knock Anthony Hill on, it's his ability in pass protection or in pass coverage, and so like that doesn't become a thing if you play him on the edge. Just let him be a freaking scud missile again. Find ball and see ball and find ball, get ball, right? Like so, I think it could be much better for him to play on the edge. So I'm with you there.
Yeah, and he had, I think, 8 or 8.5 last year, and as a freshman, he had 4.5 or 5. So he has like 12 to 13 sacks as an inside linebacker. Imagine if you just line him up full time on the edge, he'd probably have about 20 sacks right now. Probably could end his career with like 30 sacks.
Yeah, he's like I almost see him like a Sergio Kindle kind of guy, where it's like you don't know where to play him, so you just play him where you need him the most, and that's the middle linebacker.
Yeah, so I think Texas is going to be fantastic off the edge. I think they have the best edge group in the country. And honestly, I don't think it's really close. I think what South Carolina did last year off the edges and on their defensive line, I think Texas can do that this year. I think they remind me a lot of each other.
I cannot disagree with that.
So again, guys, can you please hit that like button? Please subscribe down below.